All right, so this is the second video of the variance analysis. So the objective of this one, students need to compute the materials and also the lab variances and explain how they are used for control. Right, so let's have a look. This one is variance analysis for materials and also the lab. So the total variance here is actually wants to measure the difference between the actual cost materials and the labor and their budgeted cost for the actual level of activities. Right, so for example, we can just straight going to see the example here. All right, so the actual production for the corn chips is, they're actually around 48,500 bags. Actual cost of corn, 780,000 at this price. Right, so the actual cost is around 5,382. The actual cost of the inspectors, so the inspectors around 360 hours. It's related to the labor, okay? So times 7.35 around this one. So using this actual data and also the unit standard that we got from this one before exhibit 692. Which one is 92 here? Which one? So one I said before, right? So direct material, how much direct material, direct labor, and also the overhead. Okay, so right, so the performance report in 6.5, 6.5. This one is follow. Okay, so it has been mentioned before that the total variance actually can be divided into price, right, and the usage variance or the quantity variance, if you still remember the previous video. So this will be provide the information for the manager. So now we have a look at the direct material variances. Right, so for this one, actually, there are three approaches that will be used to calculate the material price and also the usage price. Right, so okay, so this is a material price variance. Okay, I think I'm just going to see the one that I meant. Right, so material price variance is a material that could be calculated separately. So MPV, it would be measure the difference between what should have been paid for that materials and what was actually paid for that material. Okay, so what actually been paid and what was actually paid. So the formula for we going to be MPV, it's actual price times actual quantity minus standard price times actual quantity. Or actually this formula we can also probably you can find in some of the book of things is we can make the formula like the actual price, right? So it actually the formula is actually come from actual price and minus standard price, right? Okay. And then times the actual quantity. Okay, so this is at the beginning. You can see that this formula come from this one, actual price times actual quantity. All right, can you see that? So I hope I can make the draw here, but I don't know whether I can make it like this. No, like this, okay? So the actual price times actual quantity and minus this one times this one, okay? So standard price times actual quantity. Okay. So so this is information that we see in here. the actual cost of the cont is 5,382. And okay, so let's just have a look at the information here. The standard quantities for material and labor are computed as a unit quantity standard from the information in the exhibit 9.2 above. Okay, so for the cont, it's 18 times 40, 8,500. Right, so if you can check it, so you can check it to above. Okay, this one here, is it? Yeah, it's based on this information. Right, so where is it? So they got cont is 18 times 40,000, 48,500. So they got this amount, and the labor it's got from information to tax bit 92 times 48,500. So we got this hour. Okay, and then the standard's also like this set. Okay, so this one, yeah, so this is the one that I said before, the actual price per unit times finest standard price times the correct quantity, the actual quantity that has been used. Okay, so I'm just going to check it with, see that in expert too, right? Again, after this, we're going to see the direct example, so you guys have the idea about what is it about. Okay, so this is just the illustrations as the one that we found before. Yeah. So the actual cost is actually come from 780 times 0.0069. So it's just the actual price, right? They said I related to, closely related to this one. This one, right? Okay, so now, so after you got that one, these variances, so you can see the difference between this amount. Okay, so we got the price variance in here. And also this part. Okay, so you got the amount is usage variance in here. So the usage variance here is, so this is a quantity variance, right? So we got favorable here. So what would be happened when the favorable variance? So what would be also happen for the price variance? So you have to remember the one in the first video. So you can watch the first video again. Okay, make sure that you watch both of the video. Okay, so this is competition for material price variance. So the blue cheetah's line purchased and used 780,000 ounces for the first week of the March. Right, so the purchase price, this amount. So this is actually the actual quantity, right? With the price, this one, this is the actual price. So the actual price is here. The actual quantity is here. Right, so, and the standard price we got from exhibit 9.2 is this amount. So what sort of thing that we can see in here when there is, they set the standard this amount, but the actual one is 0.0069. So it's unfavorable, right? Because the actual is higher than the standard. So they got unfavorable 702. Yeah. Okay. And then the responsibility for controlling the material price variance is actually belongs to purchasing agent. Okay, you have to know who's responsible for this part. Yeah, because, you know, if you want to set, you have to know that, okay, this is actually things that we have to need to be improved on that part, and make sure that you really understand about your responsibility. Probably you can be a purchasing agent, and the price of the material is largely beyond of her control, right? But the price variance probably can be influenced by several factors like quality or probably quantity discount, right? So distance from the source of from the plant, all right. Okay, using the price variance to evaluate the performance of purchasing ads actually have some limitation. Sometimes the standard can produce some, undesirable outcome. So if the purchasing agent felt pressure to produce favorable variances, so the material of lower quality than desired may be purchased, or too much inventory will be taken advantage for the quantity decision. So this one, example of the retail store, will be used a variance analysis to help them to control the costs. So a store manager will be determine how much inventory is on hand and whether it will be meet the needs for the new parrot sales budget. So they want to analyze that one. So the next one, still related to the analysis of material price variance. So the first step in variance analysis, we have to decide whether the variance is significant or not. If it's just judged as insignificant, so there is no further step, right? So assume that the unfavorable material, all right, assume that unfavorable material price variance is, we say that above around 15%. Okay, sorry. So this one.
It's 2 hours.
So probably you judge significant because it's 50% of standard costs. So the next one is we have to figure out why it's happened. Right. So the investigation for this in a company like the Blue Cheetos, so the investigation revealed that the higher quality corn was purchased because the shortage of the usual grade in the market. So why they need to, they pay higher price because they need high quality, but the quantity of the corn is actually very limited in the market. Once the reason is known, so corrective action can be taken. So probably in this part, firm will have no control for the shortage supply. All right, so because this is closely related to the market conditions. So if so in this part, there is no problem with the internal, right? So it's closely related to the market situation. And next one is the timing of the price pairing computation. So the material price pairings can be computed when the material are purchased and when they are issued for the use in production. Right, so when the material is purchased and when they are issued for the use of production. So right, so sometimes computing price variance is quite preferable. Okay, but we need to know the variances. It would be, as early as possible. So the more timely the information, the more likely that the proper managerial action can be taken, right? So probably, for example, if you want to go to the doctor, yeah, probably you don't feel any sick in your body, but in order to know how healthy you are, you can just directly check a routine to the doctor. So it also happened like this. If company wants to do final variance analysis, it's actually not something that compulsory one, but it's just preferable. But if they want to do that, they can just do it. But that would be better because they will know about the condition of the company, and they will set the action in managerial action. Okay. So okay, so just illustration. And if the materials actually compute at the point of purchase, so the actual quantity needs to be redefined as the actual quantity of the material purchased, right? So rather than the actual material used, because the material purchased will differ from the material that has been used, right? Okay. So how about recognizing the price variance at the point of purchase? It will be means that the material inventory is carried at the standard cost. Okay, so we're going to see the journal after this. It's actually for the in the appendix. Right, so now let's have a look. The next one is the direct material usage variance, or you can see that direct material quantity surfaces or quantity variance, right? So as we said before, it's quite the same. So what we mention here, it's a difference between the direct materials that actually used and also direct materials that should have been used for the actual output. Okay, so this one is the formula. The actual quantity of material used, the standard quantity of material allowed for the actual output, and the standard price of the unit. So this is the example. The blue Cheetos will be used around 780,000 ounces of blue corn to produce this bag, 48,500 bags from corn chip. So the actual quantity is 780,000, right? So in exhibit 9.2, that's all about the standard price in there, so you can check above. So the standard price is 0.006 per ounce of the blue corn. Although the standard material allowed has already been computed there, but the detail need to be reviewed. Right. So based on the exhibit 9.2, the unit standard is 18 ounces of blue corn for every bag of the corn chips. That means that the standard quantity is 18 times 48,500 or around 873,000. So that was the standard quantity, right? Because we need, based on the standard, 18 ounces of the blue corn, it's for every bag of the corn chips. So that was the standard. So, okay, standard is set like that. So the total become 873. So how to calculate the material usage variance? It will be, because this is related to the quantity, right? So we have to know the actual quantity. The actual quantity is actually used around 780,000 ounces of the blue corn. Ya kan? Jadi dia memang sebenarnya yang digunakan itu adalah 750.000 gitu. Sedangkan standarnya itu digunakan 873. So, berarti di sini gimana? Yang standarnya itu lebih besar daripada yang actual. Nah, gitu. Jadi kayak ya simpelnya kita masih punya yang banyak gitu jumlahnya gitu standarnya kita. Tapi yang kepake itu cuma sedikit gitu ya. Yang kepake ternyata cuma sedikit untuk memproduksi si corn chip ini. Now, this is the favorable one. Ya, jadi the variance is favorable. Okay, so if you want to check the percent of standard quantity times the standard price, divide standard price. Okay, so got this amount. There you can see above. Okay, and for any other number in there. Okay, so responsibility. So the production manager, so who's responsible for this one? Production manager. It's responsible for the usage of material. So we have to minimize the waste. Okay, so we have to rework to make sure that standard is really met. Okay, but sometimes the cost of the parents is, goes to another production area. So employing the usage variance to evaluate performance, it will be lead to undesirable. So, for example, production manager feeling pressure to produce a preferable variance, that will be allow a defective unit to be transferred to the finished good. Right. So while this effort to the problem, it will be create the customer relation problem. So I think we just said in the earlier, right? If the standard set too high, sometimes probably the employee, um, you know, find difficulties to achieve the standard. So they just, sometimes don't want to achieve that. So they just try to ignore it. Okay, so the analysis, okay, the investigation revealed that the favorable material is a result of the higher quality quant acquired by the purchasing department, right? Because they don't really need too much corn to produce their corn chip, right? So in this case, the preferred variance is essentially assignable to purchasing. So because it's preferable, but you know, um, the result of change in purchasing, this is but smaller than the preferred price variance. So if the overall variance is actually favorable, so different response will be expected. So if favorable or expected persists, the higher quality should be purchased regularly, and they need to, uh, set the standard. It has need to revise the standard because actually they don't really need that much to produce the corn. Okay. All right. So the last, no, it's the last one yet, but it's direct labor variance. So the rate of price and also the efficiency or quantity variance for labor, it will be calculated using with this approach. Okay. All right. So what we've been including here is actually related to the wages or salaries for the supervisors, for the security. Okay. So the indirect, and this is the direct labor. Okay. So if we talk indirect, that will be in another part. So the labor variance is difference between what was paid to direct labor and what should have been paid. Right? So that total actual direct labor cost and the total standard cost. So this one here, so labor rate variance, it's actual rate, actual hourly wage rate, and standard hour, and actual direct labor hour used. Right? Jadi ada actual wage rate, kemudian standard wage rate, kemudian actual direct labor hours yang benar-benar digunakan gitu untuk memproduksi suatu produk. Okay. Okay, this is a formula and got this amount. So you can see the information in here. Okay. So compute the labor rate variance. So for example, in here, direct labor activity for the blue Cheetos inspector will be used to illustrate computation of the labor rate variance. We know that 360 hours were used for inspection during the first week, right? And the actual hourly wage paid for inspection is around 7.35. So the standard is 7. So the actual hour is 360, right? So the actual rate is this amount, but the standard is this amount. So the elaborate variance will be as follows. The actual rate is 7.35. The standard is 7 point. So what happened in that one? So the variance is unfavorable because the standard is set lower than the actual, or the actual is higher than the standard. Okay. So who's responsible for the elaborate variance in here? Yeah, so back on that information before. So what happened if there is a favorable? So if the favorable happen, if the total actual cost that incur is actually less than total standard, right? But the variance for the unfavorable, if because the company they paid more than what it expected to pay. So they expect to pay only 7, but but in the real time or in the actual one, they have to pay around 7.35. Okay, so that the information for that. Okay. So who's responsible? Elaborate are largely determined by such external forces. So the actual wage rarely departs from the standard rate. So, okay. So when the elaborate variance occur, they usually do so because an average rate is used for the rate standard. Okay, because the more skilled, more highly paid elaborate that was, used for the less skilled task. So wage rate for the particular labor often differ from workers because they have level of difference in seniority, right? Okay. So, but if the seniority makes changing, so it will be rise the labor variance. Okay. So who's going to control it? Production managers. Okay. Because they use the performance. Now analyze the elaborate variance. So over a 5% variance is not likely to judge significant. So assume that investigation is conducted. So the cause of variance is found to be used more highly paid and skilled machines, which occur because 2 inspectors quit without formal notice. So that's happened because there is impulsive quit. So what could be the best action? Hire and trained the 2 new inspectors. Okay. And the next one is a labor efficiency rate. Right. So yeah. Or we can say that it's labor LEV. Okay, so what measuring here? The difference between the labor hours that were actually used and the labor hours that should has been used. Okay, so you have to remember all of these variants. Okay, so if you find an exam, you can easily do it. Right, so labor efficiency variance. It's the actual hours. Okay. Times standard rate. Right, so here. Or the formula we have like this. The actual hour minus standard hour times standard. So what actually hour means? The actual direct labor hours used. And the standard is the standard direct labor hours. And the standard hourly wage rate. So the computation like this. The blue cheaters line used 360 direct labor hours for inspection while producing this amount. The rate of this amount. Okay, at the cost of 7 per hour. So the standard is, how do we know that? The standard is 0.07 times the amount of producing bags of the corn chip. Dia memproduksi 4,5. Sehingga actual hour-nya itu adalah berapa? Sedangkan actual hour-nya itu 360. Ya kan? The standard is 339.5. Ya kan, standardnya seperti dari nilai yang tadi. Nah, standard rate test self-fit. So the efficiency variance is this amount. Okay. So the actual hours for produce the back corner chip, it's around 360, but the standard is 339. So what happened in here? It means that the hour that we need to produce that one is higher than the standard one. So it's unfavorable variance. Okay. So who's responsible for the labor efficiency? So generally speaking, production manager also responsible for productive use of the direct labor. But okay, so probably because the breakdown of the machinery make us interruption. So there is non-productive use of labor. So we can analyze. So where is the problem come from? Okay. So analysis assume that is unfavorable. It's probably we can judge it's significant, and if significant, we need to go investigate it. So investigations is actually we feel that more shutdown of the process occur because probably the duties of the machine operator were split between machine operation and inspection, right? This one, and then and also the two inspectors has been quit. Okay, so that was the correlation with that. And also there is an idle time with the inspection, and the machine cannot be operated like usual, or probably the inspectors don't have any experience enough to operate it. So it would be, make them need more time to complete it. Okay. So this is just total variance. All right. So next one is calculate the variable in fixed overhead variance. So as we talked before in the beginning, right? So there is a variable and also the fixed one. Okay. So for the direct material and direct labor, the total variance are break down into price and efficiency one. And the total overhead variance is actually the difference between applied and also actual, broken down into component variances. Right. So how many components really depend on the method the variance analysis used. Okay, but we'll focus on one method. So first one, we will divide the category fixed and variable. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the component variance for each category. So the total variable is divided into two components, variable spending, variable overhead, and the other. So now let's have a look at variable overhead variances. Okay, so so this is computation is actually similar to the direct labor. It's pretty much not really different. So this is the rate for this variable overhead standard, the actual overhead cost, back of chip produced, hours allowed for production, applied variable overhead. Okay, so the total variance is since the variance is difference between the actual and applied, right? So it will be 600 minus 1,456. Okay, so this is a total variance. So the actual one is higher than the applied variable overhead. Okay, so this variance can be divided into spending and also the efficiency. Okay, so the spending variance we got from the actual variable overhead rate times the actual hour, right? So we got this number. So this is a comparison between the price variance, the materials, and also the labor. This one. We got the spending variance in here. So difference, right? See the difference, and also see the difference between the actual one and the standard one. Okay, so who's responsible? So this affected the several responsibility centers. For example, utilities about joint cost, and also the other. Okay, you can just have a look at this one. Okay. Yeah. And also the analysis. So I'm just going to same like that before. So this is flexible budget performance report, right? And then this is a variable overhead efficiency variance. Okay, so the production probably vary and the volume have been changed. So the variable overhead changed in proportion to change in the direct labor hour use. Okay, so actual hour minus standard hours, right? So times this amount. So responsible for this one. So this is actually related to the direct labor efficiency and also usage variance, right? Okay, so if more direct labor hours are used than the standard call for, so the total variable cost will increase in here, or probably will decrease. So analysis of the variable overhead efficiency variance. So the reasons for the unfavorable one are the same as the one that has been used before. The more hours we use than the standard call, because probably there's an ideal time of the inspectors. So because machine operate will be, substitute inspector that have no experience in that. Get the idea? So that's probably one of the reasons. So this is a performance report, just cost of gas, we got information here, cost formula, budget, actual hours, spending variance, and this variance. So this is based on the one that we've done above. And this is for the fixed overhead variance. Okay. This is budgeted. So how to calculate the total? The total fixed overhead is different between the actual one and the applied fixed overhead. So applied will be got from multiply the standard fixed overhead with the standard hours allowed for the actual output. Okay. Yeah, so it's responsible. So it's management. It's number of individual items, salary, deposition, and also insurance in this part. Okay, so this is related to long run investment. This is the calculation based on the information before. It's this one. Blue account has a capacity 3 million bags of chip, right? So using 23,400 lab hours. This amount is actual output. Okay. So responsible for the fixed one. So its measure capacity implies the general responsibility have been assigned to lagi-lagi production department. Okay, this is the appendix when you guys want to prepare the journal entries. Okay, so I think this one you can just check and then try to analyze it. All right, because this is just about if you want to record the material usage variance, so it will be work in processing debit and this amount in credit. Okay, and also followed by another one. Okay, I think it's enough for the variance analysis. So I'm going to try to give you the exercises after this. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.